There comes a moment in every life when the mirror no longer reflects who you truly are. You look at your reflection, the achievements, the roles, the smiles you wear for the world, and something inside whispers, "This isn't me anymore." That whisper grows louder when life begins to strip away the things you once thought defined you. The job that gave you purpose disappears. The relationship that held you together ends. The plans you built so carefully collapse without warning. And in that silence, after everything falls apart, a truth begins to rise. That maybe life isn't destroying you, maybe it's demanding that you rebuild. Rebuilding yourself is not about starting over, it's about starting deeper. It's about confronting the parts of you you've buried beneath fear and expectation. About walking through your own ruins and finding the strength that was hiding there all along. The world teaches us to hide our pain, to rush our healing, to pretend we've never fallen. But the real power lies in those who dare to face their collapse, to stand amid the ashes and whisper, "I'm still here," because that's where transformation begins, not in perfection, but in the courage to rebuild yourself. You must first turn inward and confront the shadow within. The part of you that you've spent years avoiding, denying, or hiding under the illusion of strength. Most people attempt to reconstruct their lives by changing external things, new habits, new goals, new relationships. Yet, real transformation begins when you stop running from yourself. There exists in every person a darker mirror, a reflection of the traits, emotions, and impulses that society, family, and even your own conscious mind have labeled as unacceptable. These shadows are not evil in themselves. They are merely the unacknowledged aspects of your humanity. To confront them is not to destroy yourself, but to discover yourself. The shadow is everything you do not wish to be, yet everything that makes you whole. It's the suppressed anger you disguise as calmness, the jealousy you hide behind politeness, the pain you mask with laughter, and the fear you cloak in arrogance. It's your unhealed wounds whispering through your reactions, your habits, and the choices you make when no one is watching. Most people go through life unaware of how much power their unexamined emotions hold over them. They repeat the same mistakes, sabotage their relationships, or chase hollow victories, all while wondering why peace never stays for long. The truth is that you cannot rebuild on a foundation that's cracked by denial. Until you face the parts of yourself that you've locked away, they will continue to shape your destiny from the shadows. Facing the shadow is not an intellectual exercise, it's an act of courage. It requires you to walk into the very places within you that you have feared the most. It demands honesty, the kind that strips away every false layer of identity. You must be willing to see yourself as you truly are, not as the image you've built to survive in the eyes of others. To rebuild yourself means to take full ownership of your inner world, to look at your flaws without shame, and to recognize the human behind every imperfection. The process is uncomfortable, even painful. But that pain is the price of awakening. When you begin to confront the shadow, you will experience resistance. The mind will try to rationalize, to minimize, or to project the blame onto others. It will whisper that you don't need to revisit old wounds, that it's easier to move forward and forget. But healing doesn't come through avoidance. The emotions you bury alive never die. They wait. They wait to be seen, to be understood, to be accepted. And if you don't turn to face them, they will surface in the form of anxiety, anger, or emptiness. Rebuilding requires the humility to admit that the monsters you fear are not outside you. They live within you, shaped by pain, memory, and unmet need. There's a quiet liberation in this confrontation. Once you allow yourself to meet your shadow face to face, you realize it was never your enemy. It was a teacher disguised as darkness. It shows you where you were hurt, where you were fragmented, and where your strength was born. Every emotion you've suppressed carries wisdom. Anger can reveal what boundaries were crossed. Sadness can show you what truly matters. Fear can remind you of your vulnerability and the courage you must summon to protect it. By listening to what the shadow is trying to tell you, you begin to understand that it was never there to destroy you. It was always urging you to grow. Rebuilding yourself from this awareness means integrating what you found in the dark. You cannot rebuild by rejecting your shadow, because that rejection is what broke you in the first place. The goal is not to eliminate your flaws, but to bring them into balance. To see your anger and learn how to use it as fuel for justice rather than destruction. To embrace your fear and let it teach you caution, not paralysis. To hold your sadness as proof of your capacity to love deeply. Integration means that you no longer divide yourself into good and bad and wrong. You become whole. And wholeness is what gives you strength that cannot be shaken. This journey into the shadow also reveals how much of your identity was shaped by others. You begin to see the voices of parents, teachers, lovers, and critics that told you who you were allowed to be. You see how you built masks to survive, to fit in, to be loved. You start recognizing that much of your suffering came not from being broken, but from being disconnected, from truth, from authenticity, from self-compassion. Rebuilding yourself requires peeling away every false identity until what remains is raw and real. It's not a process of becoming something new. It's a return to what you've always been beneath the conditioning. The deeper you go into your own darkness, the more compassion you gain for others. When you have faced your own anger, you understand the anger of others without judgment. When you've touched your own grief, you can hold space for someone else's pain. That's the quiet transformation that happens when you confront the shadow. You begin to see that everyone is fighting an invisible battle within. Rebuilding yourself is not only for your own healing, but for your ability to bring light to those who are still lost in theirs. There's a sacred paradox in this path. The more you embrace your darkness, the more light you uncover. Because the shadow, when integrated, becomes your source of authenticity and creativity. It gives you depth. It allows you to express truth without fear, to live without pretending, and to love without conditions. To rebuild yourself is to reclaim the power you gave away to shame, fear, and rejection. It's to stand in the mirror, not to see perfection, but to meet your whole self with acceptance. And so, The first step of rebuilding is not about setting goals or seeking validation. It's about turning inward and saying, I am ready to meet myself. It's about walking through the ruins of who you were and finding within them the materials to build something truer. When you confront the shadow within, you don't just repair the surface. You transform the foundation. You become the architect of your own being, rebuilding not from fear, but from truth. To embrace the breakdown as transformation is to see destruction not as a curse, but as a call to awaken. Most people spend their lives fearing collapse, the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, the moment when everything that once made sense suddenly crumbles. But what if that collapse is not punishment? What if it's the necessary dismantling of what was false? The universe's way of stripping away everything that no longer serves your growth. Every true rebuilding begins with ruin. It is only when the old structure falls that you can see what it was built upon, and whether it was ever real to begin with. The breakdown comes to expose illusions. It shatters the image you had of yourself, the world, and the future you imagined. It leaves you raw, uncertain, and frightened. But in that uncertainty lies the seed of your becoming. The moment your external world collapses, your inner world is forced to awaken. You are pushed to ask questions you never dared to ask. Who am I without what I lost? What truly matters when all else is gone? What remains when the noise fades and the mask falls away? These are not comfortable questions, but they are sacred ones, for they lead you back to your essence. Pain has a strange wisdom to it. It burns away pretense, pride, and illusion, revealing the truth that lies beneath the surface of your identity. When you experience a breakdown, something within you that was built on fear or control begins to dissolve. Maybe it's the belief that you must always be strong, or that your worth depends on success, or that love must look a certain way. The collapse tears those beliefs apart, and though it feels like destruction, it's actually purification. The fire is not there to consume you, but to cleanse you. During this process, many try to rebuild too quickly, to patch the cracks and pretend the structure still stands. They seek distraction or comfort in the familiar, because silence feels unbearable. But rushing the process is like trying to plant new seeds in soil that has not yet been cleared. You must allow the fire to do its work. Let the ashes settle. Sit with the emptiness until it begins to speak. There is wisdom in stillness, even in sorrow. The breakdown slows you down so that you can finally listen to the voice that has been drowned out by noise. The quiet guidance of your own soul. Transformation demands surrender. You cannot control how the old life falls apart, but you can choose how you meet it. You can resist, fighting every change, clinging to the ruins in fear. Or you can yield, not in defeat, but in acceptance, trusting that something greater is unfolding through the chaos. Surrender does not mean giving up. It means giving in to the rhythm of life's cycles. Birth, death, and rebirth. Every ending carries within it the possibility of a new beginning. You must allow what is dying to die, so that what is true may rise. There will be moments when the pain feels unbearable, when you think you will never find your way back. But the truth is that you are not meant to return to what was. You are meant to evolve beyond it. The breakdown changes you because it forces you to meet yourself in your rawest form. Without titles, possessions, or roles, it strips away every illusion until you realize that you were never the things you lost. You were always something deeper, something untouched by destruction. In this space of undoing, humility is born. You begin to see that your control was an illusion, that certainty was a fragile comfort. You start to honor the mystery of existence, how life can break you and heal you in the same breath. You come to understand that pain is not the enemy, it is the sculptor, shaping you into someone more authentic. Through the breakdown, the ego weakens and the soul emerges. You discover that real strength is not the ability to hold everything together, but the courage to let things fall apart. Every transformation requires a death, not of the body, but of identity. The person you were before the breakdown cannot survive the truth you are now awakening to. And so, part of rebuilding yourself is learning to grieve the old version of you, even as you welcome the birth of the new. This grieving is sacred. It honors what once was while making room for what is becoming. You must let go of who you thought you were so that you can meet who you truly are. Slowly, as you sit within the ruins, something begins to shift. What once felt like emptiness starts to feel like openness. You realize that the destruction has created space. Space for honesty, for peace, for meaning. You no longer crave the life that broke you. You begin to sense that every piece of pain was a step toward this awakening. The breakdown did not happen to destroy you, it happened to reveal you. And when you finally rise from it, you rise differently, not with the nerve or confidence of who you were, but with the quiet strength of someone who has faced the storm and found their center. The world may see you as the same person, but you know something within you has shifted forever. You understand now that transformation is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. The breakdown was the passage, the initiation, the necessary fall before the riser to awaken. The forgotten self is to return to the deepest truth of who you are. The part of you that existed long before you began to wear the masks the world demanded. Life conditions you from the very beginning to fit into roles. The obedient child, the successful worker, the pleasing friend, the partner who sacrifices their own needs to maintain peace. Slowly, layer by layer, you become a reflection of what others expect, rather than an expression of what your soul truly is. Awakening the forgotten self means peeling away these layers, not to discover something new, but to remember what has always been there, quietly waiting beneath the noise. Somewhere in the journey of growing up, you learned that being yourself was not safe. Maybe your curiosity was called defiance, your sensitivity was labeled weakness, your independence mistaken for rebellion. So you began to hide. You learned how to silence your inner voice to avoid rejection, how to shrink your light so it wouldn't make others uncomfortable. Each time you betrayed your truth to belong, a small piece of your real self slipped further into the shadows. Over the years, you became successful perhaps, admired even, but deep within there was an emptiness, a quiet ache, as though something essential had been misplaced. That is the forgotten self calling you home. This call often arrives disguised as restlessness or discontent. You might feel it as a subtle unease, even when everything looks fine from the outside. The job is stable, the relationships are steady, and yet there's a hollowness beneath it all, as if you are living someone else's life. That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something within you is awakening. It is your soul whispering that you have wandered too far from your own essence. To rebuild yourself authentically, you must listen to that whisper before it turns into a scream. Awakening the forgotten self requires silence, not just the absence of sound, but the quieting of the constant noise of comparison, distraction, and expectation. The modern world trains you to look outward for validation, to measure your worth by how much attention you receive. But the self you are trying to remember cannot be found in the eyes of others. It reveals itself only in solitude. When you dare to sit with your thoughts, your emotions, and the stillness of your own being. In that stillness, fragments of who you were meant to be begin to surface. The dreams you abandoned, the creativity you buried, the passions you convinced yourself were impractical. As you reconnect with these lost parts, you might also encounter pain. The forgotten self holds not only your light, but also your buried grief. You may remember the moments you silenced yourself to keep the peace, the dreams you let die to be accepted, the boundaries you never set out of fear of losing love. To awaken is to grieve what you lost in order to survive. But within that grief is liberation, because every tear that falls cleanses a part of you that has been asleep for too long. The process of remembering yourself is not always grand or dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. A sudden pull towards something that feels meaningful. A quiet moment of intuition that you finally decide to trust. You begin to notice that your energy shifts when you live in alignment with your truth. You no longer need to perform to feel worthy. Authenticity becomes your strength. The forgotten self thrives on honesty, the kind of honesty that doesn't seek approval, the kind that simply is. You start to speak from your soul rather than from fear. You start to choose peace over pleasing. You realize that authenticity is not rebellion but reconciliation, a reunion with your own essence. When you awaken to who you truly are, the world begins to rearrange itself around that truth. Some relationships fall away because they were built on your disguise. Some dreams fade because they belonged to the person you used to pretend to be. And though loss accompanies awakening, so does clarity. You begin to see that what remains, the people, the passions, the paths, align with your soul rather than your survival. This is the rebirth that rebuilding demands, not a new version of yourself, but the real one finally breathing freely after years of suffocation. To live from your awakened self is to move through life with quiet conviction. You are no longer driven by fear or scarcity, but by meaning. You act from inspiration, not obligation. You listen to your intuition as your compass, rather than the opinions of others. The forgotten self is not loud. It doesn't shout for attention. It whispers, gently, persistently. guiding you toward authenticity, creativity, and purpose. When you finally follow that voice, you stop chasing happiness and begin living in truth. And from that truth, peace flows naturally. In awakening the forgotten self, you realize that nothing you lost was ever truly gone. It was waiting for you. In the books you used to love, in the silence you once feared, in the laughter that feels real rather than polite. It was waiting for you in the moments when you stopped performing and simply existed. The journey back to yourself is not about finding something outside of you, but remembering the wholeness that was never lost, only forgotten under the weight of who you thought you had to be. And when you finally awaken, you understand that rebuilding yourself is not about becoming more. It is about coming home to the truth that you have always been enough. To rebuild yourself, you must learn the sacred art of integration. Most people believe healing means escaping their past, erasing their pain, or pretending their old wounds never happened. But running from your story does not make it disappear. It only buries it deeper within you. The parts of yourself you refuse to face do not vanish. They wait. They hide in your reactions, your relationships, and your fears. They surface when life pushes your limits. To integrate is to turn toward those parts and invite them home. It is to understand that every experience, even the painful ones, carries a fragment of who you are meant to become. When you escape, you divide yourself. You create the illusion of being fixed, while your inner world remains fragmented. You tell yourself that you've moved on, but something still lingers. An old ache, a recurring pattern, a quiet resentment that refuses to fade. That's because your healing is not complete until what was broken becomes part of your wholeness. Integration means you stop rejecting the past as if it were poison and start seeing it as medicine. You take each memory, each scar, and ask it what it came to teach you. Pain is not meant to be forgotten. It's meant to be understood. Every difficult moment leaves behind wisdom. But you can only receive that wisdom when you stop labeling your past as failure. What if the heartbreak that shattered you was the lesson that taught you to love yourself more deeply? What if the mistake you regret was the catalyst that forced you to grow beyond your limits? What if every ending was simply an initiation into a higher version of you? Integration means looking at your story without shame or bitterness and saying, "This too is part of me." You do not rebuild by erasing chapters. You rebuild by reading them until you understand why they were written. Escaping your pain may bring temporary relief, but integration brings lasting peace. Escaping means distracting yourself, burying feelings beneath work, entertainment, or constant motion. Integration asks for stillness. It asks for patience and compassion. It asks you to sit with what hurts until you see it clearly. You may feel fear at first. Fear that if you look too closely at your wounds, they will consume you. But the truth is the opposite. What you resist controls you. What you face transforms you. When you finally turn toward your pain, you realize it was never trying to destroy you. It was asking to be healed. Integration is not about condoning what happened, nor is it about forcing forgiveness before you're ready. It's about reclaiming your power from the events and people that shaped you. As long as you keep labeling yourself as a victim of your past, you remain trapped in it. But when you integrate, you shift from asking, "Why did this happen to me?" to, "What can I learn from this?" You begin to see that even the most painful moments were preparing you for strength, empathy, and wisdom. Every scar becomes a symbol of survival, every mistake a reminder of growth. Integration gives meaning to suffering, and meaning is what turns pain into transformation. There's a quiet maturity that comes with integration. You stop needing to appear perfect because you understand that perfection is not wholeness. Wholeness includes everything: your light and your darkness, your triumphs and your failures, your joy and your grief. You begin to live with softness toward yourself, recognizing that each emotion has its place. Anger shows you where your boundaries were crossed. Sadness reminds you of what you valued. Fear teaches you humility. Joy reminds you of your capacity to love. When you stop judging your emotions and start learning from them, you turn your inner chaos into harmony. To integrate also means to take responsibility for your choices without drowning in guilt. You acknowledge where you went wrong, where you hurt others or yourself, and you make amends not out of shame, but from understanding. Responsibility is not self-punishment, it is ownership. When you take ownership, you reclaim the power you once gave away to circumstances. You stop being a passive participant in your story and become its conscious author. Integration transforms the narrative from "I was broken" to "I was being reshaped." The process is not linear. Some days you will feel healed, other days old wounds will reopen. That is not failure, it is depth. Healing is not a destination you reach, but a relationship you maintain with yourself. You continue to integrate with every new experience, every challenge that reveals another hidden part of you. Over time, you notice that the things which once triggered pain now awaken understanding. You stop fearing your emotions because they no longer control you. They speak, and you listen. Through integration, your identity shifts. You no longer define yourself by what happened, but by who you became through it. You no longer see your past as something separate from you, but as a foundation. Uneven, scarred, but strong enough to build upon. You begin to appreciate the paradox of being human, that light and dark, love and loss, joy and suffering are not opposites but companions. You cannot truly experience one without knowing the other. The more deeply you integrate, the more compassion you gain for yourself, for others, for the collective imperfection that binds all people together. Rebuilding yourself without integration is like painting over a cracked wall. Eventually, the fractures resurface. But when you integrate, you repair the foundation from within. You bring all the lost parts of yourself into one harmonious whole. You stop escaping, because there is nowhere left to run. Everything that once haunted you now belongs to you. And what belongs to you can no longer control you. Integration is not an escape from your past. It is the bridge that carries you from who you were to who you are becoming. To rebuild yourself, you must learn to listen to the voice that speaks beneath words, beneath logic, beneath the noise of everyday thought, the voice of the unconscious. It is the quiet pulse of your inner world, the language of your soul. Most people spend their lives disconnected from it, living entirely in the surface layer of the mind, where everything must be explained, justified, and understood through reason. Yet reason alone cannot heal what wounds you at the deepest level. The unconscious is not something foreign or mystical. It is the hidden reservoir of your intuition, emotion, memory, and imagination. It is the unseen current that guides your choices, shapes your desires, and reveals the truth that the conscious mind often denies. The voice of the unconscious does not speak in sentences. It speaks in symbols, sensations, and dreams. It reaches you through sudden insights that seem to appear from nowhere, through recurring patterns that demand attention, through gut feelings that whisper warnings when something isn't right. It is subtle, and that is why so few learn to hear it. The noise of modern life drowns it out. The endless chatter of screens, the pressure of comparison, the constant demand for productivity. Silence has become rare, and yet silence is the only space where the unconscious can be heard. To rebuild yourself, you must make room for that silence. You must become intimate with stillness, with solitude, with the quiet conversations that happen within. Listening to the unconscious requires humility, because it will not flatter your ego. It will show you truths you have avoided, desires you have denied, fears you've suppressed, wounds you've refused to name. It will pull to the surface everything unresolved. Many people fear this inner voice because it feels like chaos. But what they call chaos is often truth. The unconscious is not the enemy of order. It is the soil from which genuine order grows. When you repress it, it rebels in the form of anxiety, confusion, or depression. When you embrace it, you begin to understand that these symptoms were not punishments, but signals. Messages from within asking to be heard. Dreams are one of the most powerful ways the unconscious speaks. Each image, each symbol, carries meaning shaped by your unique story. A falling dream may not be about fear of heights, but fear of losing control. A locked door might symbolize opportunities you feel unworthy to open. The unconscious speaks in metaphor because the truth it conveys is emotional, not literal. To listen is not to interpret every detail logically, but to feel what the symbol stirs in you. The meaning is not in the dream itself, but in your reaction to it. Rebuilding yourself requires that kind of sensitivity. The ability to sense rather than just think, to feel rather than just analyze. There are moments in life when logic fails you, when no reasoning can explain why you are drawn to something or why you must let something go. That pull, that inner knowing, comes from the unconscious. It is the voice that nudges you toward what you need to grow. Even if it doesn't make sense at first, sometimes it will guide you into discomfort, because that is where expansion lies. Other times, it will pull you away from things that look perfect on the surface but are hollow underneath. To trust that voice is to surrender to a deeper form of intelligence, one that does not operate by timelines or rules, but by truth. The difficulty is that this voice is often drowned by the conscious mind, which insists on control. The conscious mind wants certainty, structure, and answers. The unconscious asks for patience, faith, and presence. It cannot be forced to reveal its secrets. It opens only when you are willing to listen without demand. Practices like journaling, meditation, spending time in nature, or creative expression help bridge the distance between these two worlds. When you paint, write, or reflect without judgment, you allow what's hidden to rise. You start to recognize patterns in your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. What once seemed random begins to reveal purpose. You realize that your life is not a series of coincidences, but a dialogue between your conscious actions and your unconscious guidance. The voice of the unconscious is also the voice of your inner child, the part of you that feels deeply, loves freely, and dreams without fear. It remembers the joy you've forgotten and the pain you never healed. When you listen to it, you reconnect with your vulnerability, and through that vulnerability, you regain authenticity. The unconscious reminds you that to rebuild yourself is not to become harder, but more whole. You do not strengthen by silencing your feelings, you strengthen by understanding them. In times of confusion or crisis, when the outer world makes no sense, turning inward becomes the only way to find direction. The unconscious already knows what the conscious mind struggles to grasp. It sees connections before you can name them. It sends you subtle signals, a sense of heaviness around what's wrong for you, a calm certainty when you're aligned. You may not always understand why it guides you as it does, but when you follow it with openness, life begins to flow differently. Choices become clearer, not because you control the outcome, but because you are attuned to the truth beneath appearances. Listening to the unconscious is the act of honoring your inner wisdom, the part of you that has always known the way home. It teaches you that the answers you seek are not in the noise of the world, but in the silence of your being. Every insight, every dream, every intuitive whisper is a piece of the map leading you back to your essence. When you learn to trust that voice, you no longer need to rebuild yourself through force. You rebuild naturally, from the inside out. The unconscious does not shout. It waits for you to be quiet enough to hear it. And when you finally do, you realize that it has been guiding you all along, patiently leading you toward the person you were always meant to become. To rebuild yourself is not to strive for perfection, but to rise with purpose. Perfection is an illusion that traps the soul, a mirage that keeps you endlessly chasing an image of who you think you should be, instead of embracing who you are becoming. The world teaches you to measure your worth by flawlessness, by how few mistakes you make, how smooth your life appears from the outside. But the truth is, the most beautiful lives are not polished. They are real. They are shaped by failure, loss, growth, and resilience. Rising with purpose means understanding that your worth does not come from your performance, but from your presence, from the authenticity with which you live each moment, even the imperfect ones. The desire for perfection is rooted in fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. It whispers that you must be flawless to be loved or successful. But perfection is sterile. It leaves no room for growth or depth. Purpose, on the other hand, breathes life into imperfection. It allows you to see mistakes not as evidence of inadequacy, but as stepping stones toward understanding. To live with purpose is to accept that the path to becoming whole is uneven and uncertain, that every stumble carries a lesson the smooth road never could. When you rise with purpose, you stop asking, "How can I be perfect?" and start asking, "What am I meant to learn, give, and create through this moment?" Rising with purpose means choosing meaning over image. It means living guided by values instead of validation. When you rebuild yourself, you will be tempted to mold your new life to fit what the world praises. Success, popularity, control. But true rebuilding cannot happen if you are still trying to please the world that broke you. Purpose demands courage,